this in my grief about even quarantine and losing my relatives. But yeah, it is. I'm gonna end it with this. When Nina Simone said it's an artist's duty to speak to the times that we're living in, I recognize that as, oh, we're living in a time of grief. So if that means I have to put like my R&B love songs on the back burner to speak to the grief that not only I'm experiencing, but everybody in this room and outside of this room has experienced on some level, then so be it. It was about surrendering the gift to the times in which we live in. And as I live in my grief, I surrender whatever I can offer to anybody's healing process. And if my music can aid in that and can be a part of, when you said our music helped you, even quarantine, I don't take that lightly. Those aren't just words or like, oh, I like your music. That's different. That's different. So I'm gonna leave it at that. Cause like you, I can go.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I got so much that's coming to me, but I just appreciate you so much for naming the good grief, and it's just also an invitation. Like Black Girl Quarantine is good grief.
It
you
is
know,
good
like
grief.
that was my intention, and just hearing how you're talking about this good grief project is like all of these Black women and girls in this collage passed in 2020 and around 2020. This is an ancestor work, right? This is a work of an attempt at good grief to honor all of these lives that we lost. And so when you talk about remembering and paying homage, like, I'm just so grateful for how y'all teach me how to grieve. And our relationships and our sisterhoods, invite us deeper into that. So thank you.
Can I shout out Janae and
Right?
real quick?
Yes,
please.
These two are very integral in helping me tell the good grief story. We were able to take photos 2 months ago? Yeah, in my grandparents' church. So I told y'all I'm fourth generation San Franciscan. Like I'm really from here. You already know. Hey, Filma, what up? But off of Hayes, my great grandparents' church. That's where they started a church there. It's still there. It's called Neighborhood Baptist Church. Wow. And we were able to take photos in there for good grief. And
love them.
I saw she sent me like a quick edit. I was like, yo, this is something I could have never imagined. So just know that there are good things that come from good grief. Trust me, when you engage in it, some goodness comes from it. So thank y'all. Thank y'all for real.
Thank you so much, Sis. And I just also want to shout out Janae. Her work is featured over here.
Yes.
One of our exhibition artists.
Yes, Janae.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lala.
Thank you.
And Felicia, I wanted to ask you about your grief process, because I know the ways that you've been moving through your grief have been inspiring to so many folks, including myself, and giving yourself permission for it to be messy and uncomfortable. It's a beautiful invitation for us to like not feel like we have to get it right and not feel like we have to be perfect at it. And so the moments where I get to experience your honesty and vulnerability in your grief, it's like an opening for all of us to be really honest about what hurts and what's hard and not have it figured out. So I just want to invite you, to share whatever feels good for you around like what that grief process has looked and felt like.
Thank you. So I shared that I gave birth to my firstborn September 30th, 2019. And the initial onset of my grief wasn't just me grieving the loss of the child. It was the loss of the identity that I thought that I was going to have. It was the loss of the version of myself that I once was. And it was this trying to figure out who am I becoming now. I so badly wanted to be the person that I was before, but more than that, I wanted to be Kamayu's mother. And now, like, how do I do that if she's not physically here? And as we all know, grief is uncomfortable, right? It can leave you breathless. And I remember trying to get over it. And I couldn't understand, like, how come I couldn't get over it? And at the same time, I was trying to figure out if I was her mother. And I couldn't make sense of it. And I'm spending like days just screaming. All I had was a scream. Crying every day. I would go through every single picture I had. I asked everybody, send me pictures. I just want to never forget her face and look at it every single day. And I'm doing this every day, and then it dawned on me. Oh, I feel this way because I'm her mom. Like, my feelings are actually making sense. I'm not able to get over it because this is who I am. And when I realized that I had so much power, like, I remember walking from my bedroom to her room that I had already arranged for her. And because my community was so loving, I was receiving so much from my loved ones around me to support my grief. And I was realizing, like, you know what? I actually have everything that I need because I was the closest person to her. So I know exactly what it is that I need to connect with this baby. And I'm gonna figure out how to do that. And I didn't know what that looked like, but the first thing that I realized, and I'm processing it now, I was having an internal conflict with grief illiteracy, my own grief illiteracy. I didn't know that, like, get over it. Like, what is that? Where did that messaging come from? And a lot of loved ones with pure hearts would send me scriptures, would say things that meant to land beautifully and help me in my grief for reasons of, I don't know, they would have to tell you maybe it was discomfort in seeing me that way, or maybe they just really wanted me to be the version of myself that I once was. So I actually realized that too. People were also grieving who I used to be. I'm not that person anymore, right? So how do you now engage with me? But I found in my journey that I had to be honest. I had to be honest about what I was feeling. I couldn't ignore that. Because once I realized in my honesty that I was Kamayu's mother, I had to keep going. And so no matter how it felt, I would just write it, y'all. I would write it, and I feel like I'm a soundbite right now because I'm a part of this amazing organization that Brittany Tanner mentioned, which is Be Imaginative. And we have been doing healing work with these mothers who have lost their children to gun violence. And if you know anything about this story, you can find it. It's called When the Waters Get Deep. We have a documentary that was released shortly after, what is that, 2020?
That was the top of 2020.
The top of 2020, which is now an Emmy-nominated film.
Wow.
And in the film, you can hear from one of the mothers, this is while I was pregnant, and she's talking about her experience of 3 years her son has been gone. And what she does is she writes, good, bad, or ugly, right? She writes. And I didn't know that that would be the space for me. I didn't know that I would be someone that had to write through my feelings. But anytime I felt any discomfort, if someone tried to name for me what I was experiencing in my grief in an effort to connect, if it didn't sit right, and you can feel it in your body, you can feel it in your throat, you feel it in your chest, it's in your shoulders. Like, as soon as I felt it, I'd be like, oh no, I gotta write it out. I gotta write it out to find what this is for me. And you may have heard me say this once before, I know my sisters have, but I never wanted anything to come from this. I think even like October 10th, I wrote in my journal on my phone, 2019, so I told you Kamayi was September 30th. October 10th, I said, I don't want nothing to come from this. Days later, I also said,
I don't want to return to that other version of myself. I want people to know me as Kamayi's mother. I don't want to be rushed into anything else. I don't want to return to who I was. I want to be her mom. And it's so funny, it's because it's like I didn't want nothing to come from this, and then here I am finding that she taught me the deepest love. I learned that my grief was love. And like I said, you know, grief can really leave you breathless, but the will to find your voice is so incredibly powerful to be able to create. And even further, like, grief illiteracy will make you silent. It will silence you. But you will also find like the actual grief though will propel you. Grief, I dare to believe that it is will and desire. I dare to believe that it is motivation and that it is the purest form of love. And it's like, how can I not say something? How can I not be honest? How can I not? Can you imagine? I said this last night. Can you imagine if I said nothing? The evidence of my love and I say nothing?
Yeah.
So I wanted nothing to come from this, but all of this writing that I was doing, right here I am coming to 2020, and I was happy we had the shutdowns. I was already shut down. Honestly, if I'm honest, and it allowed me to feel less like I was not participating in the social norms, right? We were all now in this space of shutting down, but also it became a point of connectedness for me, because you know, grief can feel incredibly isolating if someone isn't having the same experience as you, and we know that we have to have connectedness. It's a basic human need, and so I started to feel more connected, and the writing started to flow more. I started to lean more into the writings. And I actually remember there is one song that was very much healing for me, Ree, and it was I'm Alive, that we ended up doing.
Wow.
I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
Nothing I heard reflected what I was experiencing. I had to do all of that work myself. But we went to Lauren's house to go do this because Pastor Mike asked us for on Easter. And my husband wrote a beautiful verse that talked about our experiences at the time, losing our child. And Lauren came on this hook. I'm not going to sing it, but...
Go ahead, Ree, you got it.
But that was the very first time that music returned to me. And it was because it reflected what I was experiencing. I'm so grateful for my community that they brought that gift back.
That was the first time we heard you sing. I had heard,
I didn't want to do it. I was only at the rehearsal because of reading.
Right. But when we heard you, you have to do it.
Yeah.
You got to sing.
And from there, leaning more into the process, realizing that I wasn't missing an opportunity to learn from my grief. I returned to my journal entries, and actually before I go there, I'll say this. I remember trying to understand how other mothers were going through this, because I felt like I was dying. And I remember having a very difficult time finding someone with an experience like mine. But when I found a mother, and I found them on social media, and they told me that what I was experiencing was normal, that they understood it, it just made so much room for my process. I didn't feel alone. I didn't feel crazy. And I realized from that moment, fast forward back into 2020, that I'm going to return to my journal entries, and I am going to extract from them and write affirmations from others to affirm their process. Because sometimes things around you don't affirm that, right? It does everything constantly moving and shaking, and then there might be
mothers who have to care for other children, and there are people who have to work, and there are people who have to return back to their lives. Like, there's so many circumstances and obligations that we all can have that we may miss the opportunity to sit with what it is that we're feeling and process it. And so I was given that gift to have that time to sit and journal and understand what it was that I was feeling. And so I wanted to create a space or just the conditions through the affirmations to just affirm that process.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm just so grateful for you and your bravery and your honesty and your process. And for allowing yourself to be in process in the ways that you do. Thank you. And I know that, our healing can look like so many things, right? It looks like the laughs, it looks like the tears, it looks like the songs, the writing. And I've been so honored to be a part of the Song Remedy, which is a healing collective that Brittany Cameron created. And what I love about the Song Remedy is that, like, you make room for our healing to look like all the things that it needs to. Like, it gets to be so multidimensional and multifaceted. And you, during quarantine, journeyed into like these sound bowls and engaging the sound bowl as an additional healing modality. And I've been just blown away, sis, by how you are engaging in your own healing and allowing that to expand the healing offerings that you're giving to the community. So I want to just close by inviting you to talk about what the Song Remedy has been for you, what it's looked and felt like, and how that space is offering all these different healing modalities to community.
So, the Song Remedy and these singing bowls. So, I'm an artist, I'm a singer, but I like to improvise. And I don't know if that's the Kojic in me or what, but I've always liked to improvise, and the singing bowls were something that was just so naturally easy to pick up. And it was something that when I experienced it, I was like, oh snaps, like this vibration, it's like you can't deny it. And anybody can play it. And so I really wanted to come from a perspective of, like, we really have access to our own healing. And, in my process of grieving, after I lost my brother, it was the grief, plus it was COVID, plus I was pregnant. And it's like, relationship issues and all these different things. And then I remember people talking to me and telling me like I should, seek a therapist or seek professional help. And that was a pain in the butt. Trying to find the right person and also even just be able to afford a therapist to go to in a pandemic where I'm an artist, and I feel like the pandemic hit artists like the hardest because now we don't have places to perform, and digital virtual sound is trash. So it was like, I feel like artists, music artists, we really suffered through the pandemic. And so I had to kind of find my own power and realize hold on, no, I can heal myself, I'm hella powerful. And I know when I sing that people are moved. I see the tears coming every time. So I had to kind of do what worked for me, and it just ended up being accepted by people, and it ended up being something that was extremely powerful and something that kind of is shaping my identity. And it's like I'm progressing and evolving every day, and it's like now I'm a sound healer. And so I'm even noticing things about when I talk, when I use my voice, and you have such a beautiful speaking voice. And so it's interesting how we can use our voices to create healing, and especially when we're using affirmations, saying these affirmations to ourselves and feeling, like when you talk, when we use our voices, there is, even right now, I give myself chills. A lot of people tell me when I sing that they get chills, right? But I'm already experiencing that from my own voice. And, you know, sometimes people, I can be very critical about notes that aren't always right.
And that is fine.
But we all have voices, like we're all powerful, and when you use your voice vibrates all throughout your body, right? And we're all just tiny organisms, like our skin and our breath, we're always moving. And so when you're able to say affirming things to yourself, and this is somebody who I grew up, family of really strong women who could not cry, who are very, 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 very critical. So my inner voice was just always, oh, you're not doing enough, you're not good enough, you're not this, you're not that. And so it was such a reframe for me to like say affirmations. And I'm not perfect, y'all. Like I still have days and times where I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you even still doing this? You know, like, you know what I mean? And then I have to turn around and be like, like you tripping, affirm yourself and say it. So it's really been a journey for me, and it's been helping me find myself in my womanhood, especially after having a child, and feeling different in my body, and then just not feeling like I'm enough, or not feeling like I have the power to evolve and to heal myself. Oh, okay, so I want to also say this. Grief, the way the grief, so a little bit about, so Karita and Felicia experienced their double transition of Kanye, right? So 17 days later, I experienced the transition of my brother. And I couldn't say nothing. I couldn't do anything. And I felt so inadequate because I wanted to do all these things for him. And it was just, I felt silence. My mom didn't want me to say anything about it because it was like an active case. Like they still haven't found the people. They haven't held anyone accountable for his killing. And so I felt silenced, and I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to say it and nobody wanted me to. My family did not want me to at the time. And so it was almost like a resistance. And it was like, no, I'm gonna sing. I'm gonna do this. And these beautiful people just started to gather around me. And their vulnerability and the way that Homegirl Nation was healing, all the different modalities. I really got in spaces, and it's so interesting how my art is evolving, and then not only is it evolving, but it's attracting me to experiences and people and women that are making me be the woman I want to be.
That's right.
Like I'm continuously evolving from y'all, and so all I'm saying is that I didn't know what I was doing. I was just feeling my way around, feeling my way through my healing, trying to figure out what was gonna work for me. And it worked because I had community. I tapped into community.
That's so real. Woo, Rich.
Thank you so much. Wow. I'm just so moved by each of y'all's journeys, by the ways that y'all invite yourself into your own healing and how that invites us into our healing. Thank you for letting us witness you and witness your process, witness your spirituality, your rituals, your grieving. It's such a gift, and I feel so deeply moved. And a number of things have been coming up for me. One, just like affirming the project that Destiny and Lauren worked on to support mothers who were unhoused, birthing babies in quarantine and grieving. Like the work that y'all have been doing to support other folks' grief through the pandemic. The way that y'all been supporting yourselves. I remember being in your backyard, sis, having our little song remedy photo shoot. And our photo shoot, it wasn't like, we was like healing and just somebody take pictures of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it was just so beautiful. We was all dressed in white, and you know, Ish was shout out to our sis Ish. Ish was pouring them libations and praying over us, and we was just in this circle holding hands. And that was October, the end of October, and Braxton passed like that next week. And I just remember feeling like just invited into a sisterhood that would allow me to do my healing in ways that were ugly and complex, and like that I didn't have to like have it all together, and we could all not have it together and just hold space. You talked about like how sometimes people want to say the thing to like make you feel better, and what I've learned most from y'all is just how to hold space. I've been so inspired by how we allow ourselves and each other to hold space collectively. And I feel so deeply grateful for that. And I just feel grateful for the way, like, you know, I met you at the church. And I just also want to shout out my dad, who is here. He came all the way from Atlanta. So thank you, Dad. And I'm shouting out my dad because I grew up in the church, and my dad, my God was there too. And my dad had a gospel rap group. And so when I went to the church and I met Soul Development, I was like, y'all remind me of the word. Like, I grew up in a household of musicians and artists, and you know, they was traveling the world and performing and spreading God's message. And so when I met Soul Development, I was like, this reminds me of what I grew up in. It felt like home for me. And I just thank God that like we get to do this generation of it, you know, like that was the 90s. The word was the 90s version of how can we do hip hop gospel, you know, and spread it. And just like this 2020 version of like how we are freeing ourselves up to learn God on our own terms, healing from religious trauma and spiritual abuse, and affirming our own divinity, you know, in all the ways that we are. It's like, it's so beautiful, and I feel so grateful for the foundation of spirituality that I was able to grow up in. And I also feel so grateful for how this sisterhood, these relationships, Destiny, your testimony and your music have invited me to know God for myself and to meet God through each of y'all, to see the God in each of
That's
you
what it's all about.
that mirrors and reflects me. So thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank y'all so much. Thank you. I'm so moved. So I'm going to invite us now into a brief intermission. This is a time for y'all to stretch, go to the bathroom. If you want to mix and mingle a little bit, get some more food. And we're going to come back here in about 5 minutes, and you all will be blessed with performances from each of these artists. If we can just give them a round of applause, gratitude for their honesty and their ability. So please feel free to grab more food, connect, and we will see y'all right here in about 5 minutes for our performances. Thank y'all so much for witnessing us and holding space.
Yes.
Oh, okay. And I guess those light movements and big movements for that.